Maya Torres stood in the lawyer's office on a Tuesday morning, holding a piece of paper that changed nothing and everything at the same time. The lawyer, an old man with tired eyes, slid a metal key across the desk toward her. It was rusty, like it had been sitting in a drawer for 30 years. Maybe it had been. "Your uncle left you the property in his will," the lawyer said. "The hangar on Route 9, about 5 miles outside the city limits. He purchased it in 1998. There are some back taxes, but you have time to settle those before the next deadline." Maya picked up the key. It was heavy, too heavy for something so small. "What about the rest of his estate?" she asked. "The rest was minimal," the lawyer replied. "Some savings, a car that is no longer running, and the hangar. That is all that remains. I am sorry for your loss. He was a good man from what I understand." Maya had not seen her uncle in 12 years. She had been 8 years old the last time, sitting in his kitchen while he made pancakes and told her stories about flying above clouds. Her mother had discouraged the relationship. She said her brother was living in the past, wasting his potential on things that no longer mattered. Now her uncle was gone, and he had left her a hangar. The drive to the property took her through parts of town she rarely visited. The industrial area of the city had died years ago. Factories sat empty. Warehouses had been converted into storage units or left to rot. Progress had moved elsewhere toward the tech centers where the real money was. Here, nothing happened. Nothing changed. The hangar sat alone at the end of a gravel road. It was massive, a single structure with corrugated metal walls that had turned orange with rust. The roof had holes in it. The front doors hung slightly crooked on their hinges. Weeds pushed up through the cracked pavement around it. This was what her uncle had loved enough to keep for 30 years. Maya parked her truck and walked toward the entrance. The key worked, though the lock was stiff. She had to use both hands to turn it. The door creaked open, and dust poured out like the building itself was sighing. Inside, the hangar was darker than she expected. Light came through the holes in the roof in sharp beams. Everything was covered in dust and shadow. She could make out shapes, boxes, equipment, and something larger, something that took up most of the space, covered in a massive tarp that had turned gray with age. Maya walked deeper inside, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls. She touched the tarp. It crumbled at her fingers, pieces of it falling away like dead skin. Whatever was underneath, her uncle had tried to preserve it. In the office at the side of the hangar, she found his logbook. It sat on a metal desk under a window that faced out onto nothing but weeds and sky. The leather cover was cracked, but the pages inside were in good condition. She opened it carefully. Page after page of handwriting filled the book. Technical drawings, notes, sketches of something she did not recognize, and dates. The latest entry was from 2 months before her uncle died. She picked up the logbook and held it close to her chest. By the time she left the hangar, the sun was starting to set. She had spent 6 hours walking through the building, finding more and more things her uncle had kept. Tools, old computers, filing cabinets full of papers, a kitchen area with a small cot in the corner like he had been living there, and that thing under the tarp. She had not pulled it back, not yet. She was not ready to know what it was. The next morning, Maya went to work at Henderson's Auto Repair, the shop where she had worked for 5 years. She was the only woman on the team, which meant she was always being tested. The men there were not cruel exactly, but they were careful. They watched her work. They checked things twice. They wanted to make sure she was as good as she claimed to be. "So I heard you inherited some property," David said while they worked on a truck engine. David had been at the shop longer than anyone else. He was good with cars, but liked to talk more than he liked to work. "Yeah," Maya said. She did not want to discuss it. "My uncle said it was some old building out on Route 9, David continued. "He said it is basically falling apart. That is a money pit, Tors. You should sell it right away before you have to pay to demolish it." The other men in the shop laughed. The youngest one shook his head. "That is not smart. Nobody wants that land. You would probably have to pay someone to take it." Maya did not respond. She kept working on the engine, her hands moving through the familiar motions. Loosen this bolt, lift that cable, check the connection. The work was something she understood. People were not. That evening, she went back to the hangar. She brought a flashlight and a heavy-duty tarp from her truck. She started pulling back the cover on the large object in the center of the space. The material came away in sections, releasing clouds of dust that made her cough. But slowly, the shape became clear. It was an aircraft, not like the sleek, silver transports that the Alliance had brought to Earth. This was something different, something that looked like it had been designed by humans before the aliens came and showed everyone what real technology looked like. The fuselage was a mix of materials. Some parts looked like standard aircraft aluminum. Other sections appeared to be made of something darker, something she did not recognize. The cockpit was unusual, with controls that seemed designed for a human pilot, but with additional systems she did not understand. Maya ran her hand along the wing. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, every seam was precise. Every panel was fitted perfectly. Someone had built this with care, someone had known exactly what they were doing. She opened her uncle's logbook to a random page and read by flashlight. The handwriting described something called Project. There were references to a Dr. Wells and to something called adaptive neural systems. There were drawings of circuits and diagrams that looked like they combined human engineering with technology that should not exist. On the inside of the back cover, her uncle had written a single sentence in careful letters. "If you are reading this, it is time to finish what I started." Maya closed the logbook and held it against her chest. Around her, the hangar was silent except for the wind whistling through the holes in the roof. Outside, the world had moved on, controlled the skis. Humans accepted their place as a colonial species. But in this forgotten building at the end of a gravel road, her uncle had been building something that mattered, something that said humans could still create, still innovate, still reach for more than what they had been given. The work began slowly. Maya spent her weekends at the hangar learning what her uncle had attempted to build. The aircraft was far from complete. Panels were missing from the fuselage. The engines were partially disassembled. Wiring hung from the ceiling where it had been disconnected. But as she studied the logbook and examined each piece, a picture started to form. Her uncle had designed the aircraft to combine human intuition with advanced technology in ways that seemed impossible. The cockpit had standard flight controls alongside systems that looked alien in origin, but had been modified, adapted, made compatible with human operation. The materials used in the construction suggested he had access to resources that should not have been available in a secret project. She found filing cabinets full of research documents. Many were stamped with security classifications that had expired decades ago. Project was mentioned in nearly every file. There were technical specifications, budget reports, and communication logs between her uncle and Dr. Wells. They had worked on this together, designing something that violated what everyone believed about human limitations. One document caught her attention. It was a letter dated 15 years ago, written in her uncle's handwriting and sealed in an envelope marked with her name. Inside, her uncle had written, "Maya, if you are reading this, I have left the project incomplete intentionally. I did this because I wanted someone I trusted to choose to continue the work, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The aircraft represents something important. It shows that humans can still think, still create, still reach beyond what others tell us is possible. They believe we are primitive. They believe we need their guidance and their technology. But they are wrong. We are still capable of greatness. I have left you the means to prove it. I have left you the proof that innovation did not die when they arrived. What you do with it is your choice." Maya kept the letter in her pocket for 3 days before she could read it again without crying. She took a week of vacation time from Henderson's auto repair. She told her boss she had family problems to deal with. He did not ask questions. She moved into the hangar full-time, setting up the small cot her uncle had used. She bought tools and equipment. She ordered parts from industrial suppliers, using her savings carefully. The money would not last long, but she did not think about that. She thought only about the work. The first major task was cleaning and cataloging everything. She spent 2 full days just moving items, organizing them by type, figuring out what was salvageable and what was not. The engines were the most complex. Her uncle had modified them extensively. The original jet engines had been combined with systems that seemed to bypass conventional fuel consumption. She studied the plans carefully, trying to understand the theory behind his modifications. By the end of the second week, she had made real progress. The fuselage had been cleaned. Damaged panels had been removed. The cockpit systems were spread out on workbenches, each component cataloged and labeled. She had begun the process of replacing corroded wiring and checking connections. One evening, as she was working late by flashlight, she heard a vehicle pull up outside the hangar. She froze. No one came here. The property was remote, invisible to the rest of the world. She grabbed a wrench, not sure what else to do, and walked toward the entrance. Outside, an old man was climbing out of a military vehicle. He was tall, with gray hair and a face marked by time and experience. He wore civilian clothes, but something about his posture spoke of military training. He moved with purpose. "You are Maya Torres," he said. It was not a question. "Who are you?" she asked. She held the wrench. "My name is Commander Hayes. I knew your uncle. I knew about Project. I have been waiting for someone to claim this inheritance. I have been waiting for a long time." Maya did not lower the wrench. Commander Hayes held up his hands. "I mean you no harm. I am here to help. Your uncle asked me to wait. He said if anyone ever came to the hangar, if anyone ever tried to continue the work, I should make myself known. He said they would need guidance. He said they would need to understand what he was trying to accomplish." "How do I know you are telling the truth?" Maya asked. The commander reached into his jacket slowly and pulled out a photograph. It showed a younger version of himself standing next to a man Maya recognized immediately as her uncle. They were standing in front of this same hangar, and they were both smiling. Behind them, through the hangar doors, you could see the aircraft, partially visible under its cover. "Your uncle was my friend," Commander Hayes said. "We flew together in the military. We believed in what we were building here. When the governments decided to surrender, we did not accept it. We continued the work in secret. We believed that humans deserved better than to be permanent subjects of an alien empire." Maya looked at the photograph for a long moment. Then she lowered the wrench. "How much do you know about what needs to be done?" she asked. "Enough to help," Commander Hayes replied. "And I have resources. Your uncle left more than just the hangar and the aircraft. He left funding, hidden where the authorities would not find it. He left specifications and research that he never recorded in official documents. He believed someone would come. He believed someone would care enough to finish what he started." Over the next weeks, Commander Hayes became her partner in the restoration. He provided knowledge and direction. He knew which systems were critical and which were secondary. He explained the theory behind the neural adaptive controls. He helped her understand that her uncle had not just been trying to build a faster aircraft. He had been trying to build proof that humanity had not lost its capacity for innovation. Proof that humans could still create something that rivaled alien technology. Together, they worked in the hangar late into the nights. They replaced components. They tested systems. They uncovered more and more evidence of her uncle's genius. He had combined human engineering principles with materials and technology that should not have existed. Somehow, he had done it. Somehow, he had made it work. By the end of the third month, the aircraft was taking shape as a complete machine once more. Its systems were integrated. Its panels were sealed. Its engines were prepared for testing. It was no longer a collection of parts. It was beginning to become what her uncle had envisioned. One evening, Commander Hayes showed Maya a sealed envelope with her name written in her uncle's hand. "He left this for you," the commander said. "He wanted you to read it when the aircraft was almost complete, when you could see what it truly was." Inside, her uncle had written one final message. "Maya, the aircraft you have rebuilt is more than metal and engines. It is a statement. It is proof that humans can still reach beyond the boundaries that others set for us. They believe we are finished. They believe our time for creation and innovation has passed. They are wrong. Take this aircraft and show them that the aircraft sat complete in the hangar, its surface clean and polished, looking like something from a future that humans were no longer supposed to have." Commander Hayes stood beside it with documents in his hands. He looked nervous, which was unusual. In the months they had worked together, Maya had rarely seen him doubt himself. "We need to talk about what this aircraft really is," he said. "And we need to talk about the risks of letting anyone know it exists." They sat in the office, and Commander Hayes laid out the truth in careful detail. Project had been started in the 1990s, years before they made contact with Earth. The initial government had funded it in secret, believing that human advancement required continued investment in military and aerospace technology. Your uncle and Dr. Wells had been part of a small team, maybe a dozen people, who were trying to create an aircraft that could think alongside its pilot. Not artificial intelligence exactly, but something that combined human intuition with technological response in real time. The neural adaptive systems were the breakthrough. They allowed the aircraft's controls to respond not just to what the pilot was doing, but to what the pilot was thinking about doing. The machine learned the pilot's patterns, anticipated movements, and supported human decision-making in ways that conventional technology could not. When they arrived and humanity surrendered, the project was classified and buried. The government that took over decided that continued weapons research was pointless. They had technology that made human warfare obsolete. But a few people refused to accept that conclusion. Your uncle was one of them. Dr. Wells was another. They decided to finish the project in secret, using black market funding and hidden resources. "They do not know this aircraft exists," Commander Hayes said. "They have never even considered that humans might continue advanced research after the treaty was signed. They believe we accepted our place. They believe we stopped trying." "Why tell me this now?" Maya asked. "Because the aircraft is nearly complete," Commander Hayes replied. "And because someone will eventually discover what we have done. When they do, there will be decisions to make. We need to know what you want to do. Do we destroy it? Do we hide it? Do we reveal it?" Maya walked to the window and looked out at the hangar. The aircraft was visible through the glass, its form unmistakable now that someone was looking for it. "I want to show it to the world," she said quietly. "My uncle did not build this to hide it. He built it to prove something. We should let him prove it." "That choice has consequences," Commander Hayes warned. "They will demand its destruction. They will say it violates the technology agreement. There will be political pressure. There may be legal consequences for us. The government will not thank you for this." "My uncle never expected thanks," Maya replied. "He expected this to matter." They argued about it, but Maya held firm. Over the next weeks, she contacted journalists. She spoke to media outlets about the existence of project. She released her uncle's research documents. She told the story of a mechanic who inherited an old hangar and found proof that humanity had never stopped innovating, never stopped reaching beyond the limits others imposed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. News stations sent crews to the hangar. Scientists arrived to examine the aircraft. The story spread across the internet and into news broadcasts worldwide. A young woman who had been mocked for inheriting a worthless piece of property had uncovered something remarkable. She had uncovered evidence that human brilliance was not dead, just hidden. But not everyone was happy about the revelation. 2 weeks after the media coverage began, an official from the diplomatic service arrived at the hangar with a security detail. His name was Ambassador, and he represented the Alliance's interests on Earth. He was tall, with skin that had a faint blue tint and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. "This aircraft represents a violation of the technology agreement signed between our species and yours," Ambassador stated. His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. "It must be destroyed immediately. To do otherwise would be viewed as a hostile act." Maya stood in front of the aircraft, refusing to move. "This aircraft was built by humans for humans. We have the right to pursue our own research and our own advancement. That right was never surrendered." "Your government surrendered it," the ambassador replied coldly. "Your leaders agreed to a treaty that prevents weapons development. This machine is a weapon." "This machine is proof," Maya said. "Proof that we can still think, proof that we can still create, proof that humanity is not finished." The conversation went nowhere. Ambassador left the hangar with a warning: destroy the aircraft or face sanctions. The government would not tolerate human military research. It was dangerous, it was provocative, and it was forbidden. News of the ultimatum spread quickly. Opinion divided on Earth. Some people believed humanity should comply with the demands. They argued that the aliens were too powerful to resist, that defiance would only bring punishment. Others believed that the aircraft represented something sacred, something that made them human. They argued that surrender of the right to create was surrender of the right to be human. Political leaders debated the issue. Some wanted the aircraft destroyed. Others wanted it preserved. The argument became heated and personal. Maya became the unexpected center of a global conversation about human autonomy and human rights. Commander Hayes warned her that the pressure would only increase. "They will try to force you into surrender," he said. "They will use law, politics, social pressure, whatever it takes to make you destroy what your uncle built." But Maya had made her choice. She had decided that some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight seemed impossible. She had inherited more than a hangar. She had inherited her uncle's belief that humans were capable of more than they were allowed to be. The hangar became a fortress of sorts, though not in the military sense. News crews camped outside the gates. Scientists arrived daily to study the aircraft. Political figures made statements about what should happen to it. The government maintained its demand for destruction, but nothing happened. No one took action. Everyone seemed to be waiting for someone else to make the first move. Commander Hayes received a message one morning. It came through channels he had not used in decades, from people who were still working in military intelligence. The message was brief. A group of high-ranking military officials and scientists wanted to meet with him and Maya. They wanted to discuss the aircraft. They wanted to know if a test flight was possible. "This is dangerous," Commander Hayes warned Maya. "If we let them fly the aircraft, we give the government leverage. They can study it, analyze it, reverse engineer it. They can use what they learn to bargain with thee or to expand their own power." "But if we do not fly it, what is the point?" Maya asked. "We have proven it exists. We have proven humans built it, but we have not proven it works. We have not proven it is anything more than a beautiful machine with ambitious dreams." The meeting took place in a military facility outside the city. General Mitchell arrived with 3 other senior officers and a woman Maya recognized as Dr. Cross, one of the leading aerospace scientists in the world. Dr. Cross had published papers on human-machine interface technology and neural systems. She had been following the project story closely. "Your aircraft represents something remarkable," General Mitchell said. They were sitting in a secure conference room surrounded by security. "We want to see if it functions as designed. We want to see if it is viable." "Why?" Maya asked directly. General Mitchell was quiet for a moment before responding. "Because if it works, it changes everything. It proves that humans are still capable of original thought and innovation. It proves that we were never truly inferior to we were just told we were, and we believed them. That matters more than you might understand." Dr. Cross leaned forward. "I have read your uncle's research. The neural adaptive system is brilliant. It is more sophisticated than anything I have seen. They themselves do not have this level of integration between organic thought and machine response. If it works, it represents a genuine technological advancement. It represents a direction for human development that is unique, that is ours." Maya looked at Commander Hayes. He nodded slightly. She knew what her choice needed to be. "We will do a test flight," Maya said. "But Commander Hayes will be the pilot. He knew my uncle. He understands the aircraft. He understands what it means." 2 weeks of preparation followed. Maya worked with General Mitchell's team to move the aircraft to a military test range where it could be monitored and studied. Scientists from around the world arrived to witness the test. The media set up observation stations. The government sent official observers, though ambassadors' presence was pointedly absent. The aircraft was positioned on the runway at dawn. Its engines hummed with potential. The fuselage gleamed in the early light. Cameras recorded every angle. The world was watching. Commander Hayes entered the cockpit wearing a flight suit and a neural headset that would allow the aircraft to read his cognitive patterns. Maya watched from the ground as he ran through the startup sequence. Every system came online. Every instrument showed green. The aircraft was ready. "All systems are nominal," Commander Hayes reported through the communication system. His voice was calm. This was a man who had spent his life in preparation for this single moment. Maya held her breath as the engines began to roar. The aircraft moved forward down the runway, slowly at first, then faster. The sound of it was different from anything humans had built before. It was a sound that combined jet engines with something else, something that seemed to vibrate at a frequency that went beyond noise into something almost musical. The aircraft lifted off. For 30 minutes, Commander Hayes flew it through a series of tests. He demonstrated speed capabilities that violated what everyone believed was possible with human-designed aircraft. The neural systems responded to his instincts, allowing him to make adjustments and refinements at speeds that traditional pilots could not match. The aircraft moved through the sky with grace and precision, responding to the pilot's thoughts as much as his hands on the controls. At one point, he flew upside down and executed a barrel roll that should have torn the aircraft apart. It did not. The structure held. The systems adapted. The aircraft responded to the pilot's confidence and turned that confidence into maneuver. He brought it back to the runway and landed it with perfect precision. When Commander Hayes emerged from the cockpit, he was smiling. He removed the neural headset and held it up to the cameras. "It works," he said simply. "It all works. Your uncle built something that actually works." The reaction was immediate. Scientists crowded around the aircraft, examining it, taking measurements, photographing every component. General Mitchell looked satisfied, like a puzzle had been solved. Dr. Cross was openly amazed, asking question after question about the neural interface and the adaptive systems. But the most important reaction came from the observers. They had brought instruments to measure the aircraft's performance. They had been prepared to find flaws and inadequacies that would justify their dismissal of human capability. Instead, they found something that challenged their assumptions. The data showed an aircraft with performance characteristics that they had not anticipated. The neural adaptive system was genuinely sophisticated. The integration of human and machine was genuinely seamless. For the first time, the observers looked uncomfortable. One of them, a younger alien named here, approached Maya after the flight. "Your people created this?" he asked. There was something different in his voice. Not hostility, but something closer to respect. "My uncle created this," Maya corrected him. "Humans created this. We are still capable of innovation. We are still capable of excellence." Here was quiet for a long moment. "The Alliance will not accept this," he said finally. The hearing before the galactic community lasted 3 weeks. Representatives from a dozen different alien species arrived on Earth to examine project and evaluate what humans had accomplished. Some came with the assumption that the aircraft would be destroyed, that human ambition needed to be controlled. Others came with genuine curiosity about what a young species could produce. Dr. Cross presented the scientific findings. She explained the neural adaptive system in detail, describing how it represented a unique approach to human-machine integration. She showed how her uncle's design philosophy had created something that was not just effective but elegant. The science was sound. The innovation was real. Commander Hayes answered questions about the aircraft's capabilities. He described the test flight, the performance metrics, the reliability of the systems. He explained that the aircraft represented not a weapon for conquest, but a tool for proving human worth in a galactic context that had taught humans to believe they were worthless. Maya spoke last. She told the story of her uncle, of his belief that humanity deserved better than permanent servitude. She told the story of her inheritance and her choice to finish his work instead of accepting its destruction. She spoke plainly, without rhetoric or emotion, letting the facts of what she had done speak for themselves. The representatives voted. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Project had produced genuine innovation. Humans had demonstrated capability that justified reconsideration of their colonial status. The aircraft would be preserved. The research would be protected. Humans would be permitted to continue their own technological development with monitoring, but without the strict restrictions that had existed before. It was not independence, it was not freedom, but it was progress, it was recognition. It was the first crack in the wall that had been built around humanity's future. The galactic media coverage was extensive. Human news outlets celebrated. Social media erupted with messages of pride and hope. People who had accepted their role as a subject species began to wonder if something else was possible. Protests erupted in some areas, with people demanding greater human autonomy. Political leaders argued about what the decision meant for Earth's future relationship with the Alliance. But in the hangar, Maya was focused on something more immediate. She had been contacted by a dozen aerospace companies, universities, and research institutions. They wanted to study the aircraft. They wanted to use her uncle's research to continue development. They wanted to hire her as a consultant, as an engineer, as a leader in the new field of human adaptive technology. She turned most of them down. Instead, she did something different. She converted the hangar into a research and training center. She used the funding that her uncle had left and the money that now came from government contracts to establish a facility where young engineers and mechanics could learn to work with adaptive systems and neural interfaces. Commander Hayes stayed on as her partner. He helped design the curriculum and oversee the training programs. Together, they made sure that her uncle's philosophy was preserved, that innovation was never pursued for its own sake, but always with the goal of human flourishing and human dignity. 6 months after the galactic hearing, the hangar held its first class of 20 young students. They came from different backgrounds, different countries, different economic circumstances. They had in common only their curiosity and their desire to build something meaningful. Maya taught them about her uncle's work. She taught them about project. She taught them about the belief that humans were still capable of excellence. The original aircraft was moved to a museum dedicated to human innovation. It sat in a place of honor, a symbol of what one person's faith and determination could accomplish. But the work continued in the hangar. New designs were being tested. New systems were being developed. New aircraft were being built, each one incorporating what her uncle had learned and what new engineers were discovering. 1 year after Maya first walked into the hangar to claim her inheritance, she received a visitor. It was Dr. Wells, the scientist who had worked with her uncle on project. She had gone into hiding after the project was classified, living quietly in a small community. She had never stopped thinking about the work, but she had assumed it was lost forever. "Your uncle believed in you," Dr. Wells said as she examined the new designs and the aircraft being built. "He never met you as an adult, but he believed that when you found the hangar, you would understand what it meant. He was right." "What he built was remarkable," Maya said. "I am just completing what he started." "No," Dr. Wells corrected her gently. "You are doing more than that. You are building the future. You are creating a space where human innovation can continue, where young people can learn that we are still worthy of creating excellence. That is more important than any single aircraft." By the end of the second year, the hangar had trained over 100 young engineers. Universities had established new programs based on adaptive technology research. Private companies had begun investment in human-developed aerospace. The landscape of human innovation was beginning to shift. The belief that humanity was finished as a creative species was being challenged every day. Maya received many offers. She could have left the hangar to work for major corporations or prestigious research institutions. She could have become wealthy and famous. She chose instead to stay in the old building her uncle had loved, teaching the next generation and continuing the work he had started. On a quiet evening, she stood in the hangar alone. The aircraft her uncle had built so many years ago was no longer here, but she could see it clearly in her mind. She could see Commander Hayes in the cockpit, taking that aircraft into the sky and proving that humans were still capable of reaching beyond the limits others imposed. She thought about all the students who had walked through these doors, all the young people who had learned to believe that they were capable of more than they had been told. She thought about her uncle, and about the faith he had shown in leaving this hangar and this aircraft to someone he barely knew, trusting that they would understand the message. The message was simple: humans were not finished. Innovation was not dead. The capacity to create excellence still existed, waiting only for someone to believe in it enough to pursue it. Maya pulled up the old leather logbook and opened it to the last page. Her uncle's final entry was still there, dated just weeks before his death. It read simply, "The future belongs to those who refuse to accept that they are finished. The future belongs to those who create instead of surrender. The future belongs to humans." She placed her hand over the words and made a silent promise. She would ensure that her uncle's words became more than philosophy. She would ensure they became reality, one innovation at a time, one student at a time, one aircraft at a time. The girl who had been mocked for inheriting a worthless hangar had become the architect of humanity's renewed belief in itself. She had taken her uncle's dream and transformed it into something real and lasting. She had proven that the greatest legacies were not inherited in moment of transfer, but built through dedication and faith in what was possible. Outside the hangar, the night was clear and full of stars. Somewhere up there, they were learning that they had underestimated humanity. Somewhere up there, other species were reconsidering their assumptions about what humans were capable of achieving. And here in the hangar, surrounded by tools and aircraft and the dreams of a new generation, Maya Tors stood as living proof that sometimes inherited burdens could become inherited blessings, if only someone believed enough to transform them. Ort. Ambassador arrived the next day, his expression unreadable. He asked to speak with Maya privately. In the hangar, standing in front of the aircraft, he delivered the Alliance's formal response. "Your species has violated the technology agreement," he stated. "However, the Alliance recognizes that this violation represents genuine innovation and represents human capability that we had underestimated. A hearing will be conducted. Representatives from other civilizations in the galactic community will examine your aircraft and evaluate what has been accomplished. The decision about its fate will be made by the full Alliance, not by Earth's colonial administrators." It was not a victory, but it was not a defeat either. It was a chance. It was proof that humans were no longer entirely without voice in their own fate. One evening, as she stood alone in the hangar looking at the complete aircraft, she placed her hand on its fuselage and made a promise to her uncle. "I will not let them destroy this," she whispered. "I will prove that you were right. I will prove that humans can still reach for the impossible." Outside the hangar, the world watched and waited to see what would happen next. A young mechanic had challenged an alien empire. She had refused to accept their rules. Now everyone wondered if defiance was possible, or if humanity was truly finished as a species of creators and innovators. Why are wrong? Show them that humans are still capable of producing excellence. This is not about war. This is about the right to be human, to think, to build, to reach for the impossible. I am counting on you, Maya. The future of human pride is in your hands. Maya held the letter and looked at the aircraft. It was nearly complete. It was real. It was her uncle's dream, and now it was her responsibility. She looked at the incomplete aircraft and made a decision that would change everything. I am going to finish this, she whispered to her uncle's ghost. I do not know how yet, but I am going to finish it.